18-year-old Lily Carter stood beside Grandpa Walter's rusty pickup truck while the rest of the family argued over millions of dollars worth of property. The lawyer finished reading the will. The farmhouse goes to Michael. The ranch goes to Stephen. The investment accounts are divided equally. He looked up. Lily inherits Walter Carter's 1952 pickup truck. Silence. Then laughter. Her older cousins couldn't stop smiling. You got a truck that barely runs. My lawnmower's worth more. Someone tossed her the weathered keys. Try not to break down before you leave. Lily simply picked them up. Her grandfather had loved that truck. If it mattered to him, it mattered to her. By sunset, she had nowhere else to go. The family sold the farmhouse within a week. Lily loaded everything she owned into the truck's bed. The engine coughed twice, then somehow started. She drove away. The pickup wasn't beautiful. Rust covered both fenders. The paint had faded from bright red to dull brown. The driver's seat had been repaired with old denim patches. But the engine still sounded strong. Walter had always maintained what mattered. Unable to afford rent, Lily parked beside an abandoned repair garage on the edge of town. The owner allowed her to stay if she helped clean the property. Every morning, she worked at a diner. Every afternoon, she restored the old truck. She polished chrome, changed fluids, rebuilt the carburetor using secondhand parts. One evening, an elderly mechanic named Frank wandered over. "You've got your grandfather's hands." Lily smiled. "You knew him?" "For 40 years. Frank slowly circled the truck. He rebuilt this pickup 3 different times. He loved it." Frank nodded. "But not because it was valuable." He stopped beside the truck bed. "He once told me, if anyone ever restored this truck properly, they'd finally understand." "Understand what?" Frank shrugged. He never explained. Before leaving, he quietly added, "There's one thing that always puzzled me." "What?" "I helped replace almost every part on this truck. Except the truck bed." He refused to let anyone touch it. Those words stayed with Lily. Over the next month, she restored every inch of the pickup. She repaired dents, installed new tires, repainted the cab in its original deep crimson color. People began stopping just to admire it. One Saturday morning, a classic vehicle collector approached her. "I'll give you $200,000. Lily laughed. "For Grandpa's truck?" "I'm serious." "No." The man handed her a business card. "If you change your mind, call me." He drove away. 2 weeks later, another collector appeared. This time the offer reached $800,000. Again, she refused. Now she knew. The truck wasn't valuable simply because it was old. Something about it mattered. That evening, she crawled beneath the truck bed with a flashlight. Everything appeared original. Heavy steel cross members, old wooden floorboards, weathered bolts. Then she noticed something unusual. One steel support beam had fresh welds, far newer than the surrounding metal. She tapped it. Instead of a solid ring, it echoed. Hollow. Her heartbeat quickened. Using a socket wrench, she carefully removed several hidden bolts. The entire steel panel swung downward. Behind it rested a narrow, waterproof compartment. Inside lay an old leather tool roll, a brass key, a folded county survey map, and a handwritten note. Only 5 words appeared. "The mill still remembers." The old Carter lumber mill. It had closed 20 years earlier. Everyone assumed it would eventually collapse. The survey map showed something strange. Behind the abandoned sawmill stood a forgotten machine shed. A handwritten X marked its foundation. Early the next morning, Lily drove there. Nature had almost reclaimed the property. Tall grass covered broken rail tracks. The mill's windows had shattered decades earlier. But the small machine shed still stood. According to the map, the X rested beneath an enormous cast-iron woodworking lathe. With considerable effort, Lily pushed the heavy machine aside. Underneath lay a square steel hatch hidden beneath years of sawdust and dirt. The brass key fit perfectly. The lock clicked. The hatch slowly lifted. Cold air drifted upward. Stone steps disappeared into darkness. This can't be real. Lantern in hand, Lily climbed down. The staircase opened into an enormous underground workshop. Not a bunker, not a vault. A complete manufacturing laboratory. Steel shelving filled with leather-bound journals. Patent drawings. Mechanical blueprints. Historic contracts. Engineering prototypes. Rows of precision tools. At the center stood a massive oak drafting table. One envelope rested neatly in the middle. Across the front, written in Grandpa Walter's unmistakable handwriting, were 3 words. For Lily only. Her eyes filled with tears. She carefully opened it. The very first sentence stopped her cold. "If you've reached this workshop, then you restored the truck instead of selling it." She smiled. "You knew I would." She continued reading. The truck was never the inheritance. Before she could read the next sentence, she heard something above. Not engines. Not voices. The distinct sound of old machinery starting. A conveyor belt rumbled somewhere inside the abandoned mill. Then another. Electric motors that hadn't run in decades suddenly came alive. Lily hurried to an old observation window overlooking the main mill floor. Dust swirled through shafts of sunlight. Far above, someone had somehow restored power to the abandoned mill, and the ancient production line was beginning to move. Lily stared through the dusty observation window. The abandoned mill had been silent for 2 decades. Now one conveyor belt slowly rolled forward. Then another. Old warning lights flickered dimly. Somewhere above, a diesel generator rumbled to life. She gripped her lantern tighter. Who had restarted the mill? She hurried back to her grandfather's letter. The truck was never the inheritance. She turned the page. The workshop isn't your inheritance either. Lily frowned. If neither the truck nor the workshop was the inheritance, what was? She continued reading. 40 years earlier, Walter Carter had become one of the country's most respected woodworking inventors. While operating the Carter lumber mill, he developed dozens of mechanical improvements that made sawmills safer, faster, and far less wasteful. Large manufacturers repeatedly offered to buy his inventions. Walter refused. He believed small family-owned mills deserved the same technology as giant corporations. Instead of selling his ideas outright, he patented them. Over the next 30 years, hundreds of mills licensed his designs. The royalties quietly accumulated. Every blueprint, every patent certificate, every engineering journal, every licensing agreement, every prototype, everything had been hidden beneath the abandoned mill. Not to hide wealth, to protect the ideas until someone appreciated the work behind them. Lily opened another leather folder. Inside rested hundreds of official patent documents, improved log carriages, precision saw guides, automatic blade safety systems, energy-efficient conveyor drives, wood waste recycling equipment. The inventions had transformed an entire industry. A recent financial statement rested beneath them. The Carter Innovation Trust. Estimated value, $318 million. Lily slowly lowered the papers. $318 million. Not because someone had discovered treasure, because decades of engineering innovation had continued earning royalties around the world. The letter continued. The trust transfers only to the person who restores the truck before discovering the workshop. Lily smiled through tears. She had already passed the test. She restored the pickup because she loved her grandfather, not because she expected anything in return. Then she noticed another envelope. Smaller. Addressed simply. My granddaughter. She carefully opened it. Lily, if you're reading this, then the family probably laughed when you inherited the truck. She laughed softly through her tears. They certainly did. The letter continued. People often mistake the tools for the achievement. The truck was only a tool. The workshop was only a tool. The real inheritance was learning to repair what others discard. Lily wiped away another tear. Walter continued. When you were 10 years old, you spent 3 afternoons helping me rebuild an old wheelbarrow everyone else wanted to throw away. You never once asked if it was worth fixing. You simply smiled and picked up a wrench. That's when I knew. You understood something money cannot teach. The final paragraph read, build things. Teach others. Leave every place better than you found it. That is the only fortune that lasts. Suddenly another sound echoed through the underground workshop. Footsteps. Lily looked up. An elderly man appeared at the stairway. It was Frank, the retired mechanic. He removed his cap. I figured you'd make it. You knew? Frank nodded. Walter asked me to come only if I ever heard those machines running again. So you started them? Frank smiled. No. The backup system did. He pointed toward an old electrical panel. Your grandfather designed a simple mechanical trigger. When the workshop door opened for the first time, the generator automatically started, and every machine came back to life. Lily looked around in amazement. So nobody's been here? Not since Walter locked it. Frank quietly handed her another key. He asked me to protect one last thing. Together they walked into a smaller room connected to the workshop. Inside stood dozens of beautifully restored woodworking machines. Every one looked ready to operate. On the far wall hung framed photographs. Young apprentices, families, factory workers, engineers. Walter had spent decades training people for free. Beneath every photograph was a handwritten note describing where they worked today. Hundreds of careers had begun inside this very workshop. Frank smiled. Those patents made Walter wealthy. But this room made him proud. Weeks later, attorney Rebecca Lawson arrived. She confirmed everything. The Carter Innovation Trust legally belonged to Lily. Its patents continued generating steady royalty income for manufacturers around the world. Reporters expected her to auction the inventions or sell the licensing rights. Instead, Lily surprised everyone. The abandoned lumber mill reopened. Not as a factory, as the Carter Innovation Center. Young mechanics learned restoration. High school students studied engineering. Retired craftsmen volunteered as instructors. Old woodworking skills were preserved alongside modern manufacturing technology. The rusty pickup truck stood inside the entrance hall, exactly as Walter had left it before Lily restored it. Visitors often admired the truck. Many assumed it was valuable because of its age. Lily always smiled. It isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it carried someone who believed every broken thing deserved another chance. Her cousins eventually visited. They expected resentment. Instead, Lily welcomed them. She gave them a tour of the workshop, showed them the patents, introduced them to apprentices building their first projects. One cousin quietly asked, "Why aren't you angry?" Lily looked toward the old truck. "Grandpa already gave me something better than revenge." Years later, thousands of students had graduated from the Carter Innovation Center. Many started businesses of their own. Others became engineers, mechanics, inventors, and master craftsmen. Every graduation ceremony ended the same way. Lily placed her grandfather's old wrench on the workbench. She told every student, "Never measure something by how it looks today. Measure it by what it can become if someone cares enough to rebuild it." Most people believed Lily became wealthy because she found a hidden compartment inside Grandpa's rusty truck. That wasn't the real story. The hidden compartment wasn't the treasure. The underground workshop wasn't the treasure. Even the $318 million innovation trust wasn't the greatest inheritance. Walter Carter left his granddaughter something far more valuable: the patience to restore instead of replace, the courage to believe in potential that others overlooked, and the understanding that the greatest legacy isn't hidden inside old machines. It's passed from one pair of working hands to the next. For an 18-year-old who had been laughed out of her family, Grandpa's rusty truck didn't just lead her to a fortune. It led her to a purpose that would outlast every dollar she would ever inherit.